Imagine that the person you loved with all your heart and effort ends up throwing you away and cutting you and your heart with just few words. Suda, a normal high school student, fell in love with a beautiful girl, but after dating for a time he suffered the worst fate. The manga opens with our main protagonist walking through the crowded hallway of his school. Everyone was busy with their own stuff, and as he walked he was also busy messaging someone. Not only today was special for him, but also he was about to meet someone very special of his after a long time. He smiled and his heart clearly was already someone's. Just a few months ago, he got his first ever girlfriend, and the reason he smiled was because he just thought of her right now. Although Suda seems like a normal high school student, there are still a few family-related problems that he has been dealing with. Money has been a curse for him, and since his father has a mountain of debt, he works very hard to support him, and this time he wished that he would be financially strong enough to retire his father, and let him have some delicious food. Despite his plans and efforts to help his father, he also wants the very best for his girlfriend, who he actually loves a lot. He additionally also saved up some money so he could buy her new things for their first summer break. He smiles at the window like a stupid man madly in love, and he slides open the door to his demise. He greets his girlfriend Kasumi, and when he mentions their date, immediately the harsh and cold words that left her mouth crippled his emotion and broke his heart. She asks what date he was talking about. Now ever since he started dating her, she always had some attitude here and there, but this time it was a little harsher than ever. As two fellow classmates stood near her, she glares at him and lets him know that she would very much like to spend her remaining days in school with her real boyfriend and not some wallet she picked up. She lets him know that her precious summer break will surely not be wasted on a horny ape who glues himself to her. Now this was too much for him, and since there were other people in the class, it just ends up making him a clown for everyone. Her sharp words continued to shower, and it was clear that poor Suda was in a very toxic and one-sided relationship. She yells at him and adds that he shouldn't have left his job and continued to act as her wallet. Suda for the past month worked hard like never before just to get money for his family and support his girlfriend's expenses, but here his world just flipped upside down. As the class muttered about him, they were obviously making fun of him, and he starts to question his girlfriend who was still precious to him in his heart. He cried that she shouldn't badmouth and embarrass him in front of everyone, but she was already fed up with him, and since he couldn't fund her stupid expenses, he was useless to her. She lets him know that she never ever was there to date him seriously from the start, and shares that since day one he was a wallet and bag boy for her. Hearing this, his chest ached and his mind was filled with pain. For Kasumi his work and affection were just nothing to her. The time when he got closer to her, and the time they spent together, Suda learns that it was all just lies. She laughs at him for being too invested in her, and he asks why would she reply for his confession in the first place, and with a joking tone she lets him know that she was bored and just wanted to kill some time. She glances at him, and with a cold voice she lets him know that clearly there was always a status difference between them. She adds that she is the daughter of a well-established CEO, and from the start Suta never really had the perfect charm and quality to get any closer to her than he already did. Poor Suda was crushed by these words, and she didn't even care about his image or anything like that, and with a loud voice she yells at him that he is not tall nor handsome, and since he has no money left, she would like to part ways with him now. She lets everyone know that she is done with this NPC and trash. As everyone around them started to giggle and mock him, he couldn't really form any words. Now he was still processing everything. But it turned out that his love for her was only one-sided from the start, and he never even came close to her heart, let alone anything else. He smiles like a clown in the middle of everything, and painful thoughts kept circling around him. She approaches him and lets him know that if he becomes an popular hunk or a star she might shut her nose and accept him as her boyfriend here and there. What she was doing here was she compared him to a top idol of a VTuber. She was secretly working very hard to get popular herself, and was inspired by top leading characters. This was also a reason for her dumping. She wanted to be around with people who could help her get popular, and the only way she could do that is by dating the popular VTuber, offering them some of herself, and making a name for herself. As he said something about the character, immediately her persona changed, and she leans over to him and lets him know that he can't talk down to someone she admires. She started to explain her great plans ahead and shared about her hobbies which were beyond his reach, and she gets over to her friends and they began to talk with each other, completely ignoring him and his existence. In anger he was about to say something, but in the next instant he covers his mouth, and she began to push herself on him one more time. She lets him know that from the start she already had another boyfriend, and she lets him know that she is thankful for all the presents he bought her. This girl drained every penny from Suda for the last month, and when he decided to take a break from his jobs, she had the strength to throw him out like a pest, and poor Suda could really not do anything but glare and wonder to himself about the pain and ill feelings. He quietly walks out of the room, and as they laughed, this was a tragic start to our Suda's life. He himself knew that he was a little too worthless to begin with, but he was the happiest when he was with her. As a gloomy atmosphere surrounded him, he was making some food and tried his best to forget all about her attitude and words. He notices ahead of him, a video of a popular VTuber was playing. In today's world, VTubers are surely the leading earners, cranking thousands of followers and a lot of money and deals. He prepares the food and was about to give it to someone. As a girl was talking loudly, he was about to feed a loud VTuber that he was raising. As a character makes fun of her viewers, she ends the live stream and her chat was going crazy. He listens to these words and slowly he made his way up to the room of this streamer. He calls out to Isuzu, and when she listened to this, she busts into joy, and there we meet a beautiful girl, who is actually a VTuber living together at his place. She dashes towards him, and she hugs him. This was the troublesome guest that he takes care of, an overly attached timid girl who streams like a mad dog. As she asks what he made, Isuzu ends up making the biggest mistake of all time. She had thought that the live stream ended, but it was still running. She sits down and teases Suda to feed her, and just listening to these words the chat was going crazy. This girl is Isuzu, someone close to him that he could consider to be a sister. Since she started a VTuber channel it blew up, and since that, she hasn't really went to school. Her career as a VTuber has surely spread and she has made a name for her and is accumulating around 1 million subscribers. On top of everything, she is an introvert and has a terrifying time with strangers. From every angle she is a perfect example of an idol. She has silver hair, which is pretty different, that is solely because she is half Russian. On the other hand, Suda is just your average plain-looking high school student, and the only thing that makes him somewhat special is that he just got dumped by his girlfriend. He glances at her and shares that they are step-siblings, and she has really helped him a lot. Her not going to school actually has made her life a lot easier, and things became out of control when she started to get a little too much attention in school. As he introduced her to us, he notices that the chat was still scrolling. Since he never really understood the live streaming thing, he ignored it. From the back, Isuzu began to call him. As he sits down, they began to talk to each other, and with a teasing tone she replies to his leftover scheme and tells him to feed her if he wants no leftovers. Ever since they were little he had unexpectedly spoiled her a little too much, and in this fight he loses. Their private things were all being monitored by thousands of people and both of them didn't have a single clue. Isuzu rubs her belly and cries out that she is full, and as they began to talk to one another again, she asks him if he watched her latest stream, and with a cold voice he lets her know that she has been saying a little too harsh things in her streams. As he tells her to cut it out, immediately all the happy and jolly atmosphere leaves them. He shares that people take out their precious time to watch her, and they even donate their hard-earned money, and since they respect and love her stream she should not talk to them in a harsh tone. He also adds that she should not ignore the comments of people as well. He lets her know that she should always be humble and thank the people watching the content. Since his voice was firm and strong, immediately she pouts and began to explain to him that her character's demeanor is like this, and this is what the viewers want as well. Suda obviously has no idea about the digital world, and in this case he shares his biggest fear and explains to her that he hates it when antics talk down on her and spread bad things about her. With a shaking voice she also adds that if she stops acting the way the viewers want her to be, then they would just stop watching her. He pats her head and he replies to her worries by sharing that she doesn't really need to push herself so hard to earn money. Ever since their mother died, they were in a lot of debt, but despite that Isuzu started to support both Suda and his father. He smiles and lets her know that for her support they are very thankful, and hearing this she almost began to tear up. He lets her know that for what she has been doing it could be enough. She asks him how he would support himself in studies if she stops funding their father's shop who is helping his studies. He shakes her off and reminds her that he just needs to be a top grader to keep his scholarships. She sulks and reminds him that it is surely a lot of pressure as well. As both brother and sister began to talk to each other, they both have respect for each other, and both wanted to be there for each other. Suda was shouldering almost the entire house, and today he gives her a thumbs up and tells her that he is tougher than he looks. She shouts at him this time and with a confident voice she lets him know that she won't stop no matter what, and she would become someone strong and reliable that her whole family would lean on. As he smiled, it was clear that his sister was really there to support him. He pats her head and he ends up getting a phone call. When he checked, it was none other than his ex-girlfriend who was also watching the stream. He reflected on how she dumped him yesterday and now wants to talk again. Isuzu asked why wouldn't he want to pick it up, and she began to shower him with questions. He replies that he was dumped and shares that it is his ex-girlfriend calling. Hearing this she was filled with anger, and she yelled and asked why would she leave him. He replies that she already had someone else in her life and was just playing around with him. She asks who his girlfriend was and after getting bombed by questions he ends up saying her full name in the stream. When she hears this she said her own stuff, but he had no idea that he just leaked Kasumi's name to the whole nation. He thanks her, but when Isuzu's phone began to ring as well, she checked and her soul leaves her body. She began to mutter that the live stream was on, and when she glanced back, her streaming world was turned upside down. Messages after messages were piling again, and people were asking all sorts of stuff about her and her family. He glanced at his phone and saw that his ex-girlfriend was messaging him, and asked him why would he want to broadcast her name to the whole country. When they both realized the things they did, there was really not going to be a stop to this. Comments began to trace down Suda, and it was only fair that they would get Isuzu's location as well. This is the story of Suda and how he became VTuber, in the midst of a nasty breakup and family situation. After getting dumped, fate gives him the chance to meet wonderful souls who respected him through and cared for him more than an empty-headed gold digger. Once they both realized what they had just done, immediately Suda tells her to just turn off the live stream, and when she did that, her phone began to just go crazy. She began to talk to the person on the other side of the phone, and it was clear that they just landed in a much bigger pool of problems, as dealing with the internet is never easy nor relaxing as it seems like. Suda was stressing so much so that he was even worried for his ex, whose name he revealed, and if things go too bad people could really start to harass her and even start doing other things to her online. There were so many things going on with him that he really couldn't choose one option. There were definitely a few things that he could be doing right now, but all of them just led him into an abyss of troubles. After he left the room, he entered back, and since she was showered by phone after phone calls, he knocks the door and enters. To his surprise, Isuzu was actually chilling in front of her screen, and she had a very troubled expression, but also it seemed like she cried. She rushes towards him and began to lower her head. The once full of energy and happy girl she was earlier, it all went away after she realized that she just ruined his life. Things really could turn sour for him, and since her personality can't handle things like this, he knew that he needed to make sure to not leave a bad mark on her mentality. He does what every brother should do, and he pats her head and lets her know that everyone makes mistakes, and the most important things that someone should do is to look for solutions and what to do afterward. He lets her know that there is no reason for them to fight over the spilled milk. She began to explain that her character ended up saying some stuff that she would never say, and Suda began to wonder if she was going to kick him out of her house. Deep down he blamed himself for ruining this and questioned if he was a good brother or not, and instead of her being angry, she had a bright expression on her face, and she lets him know that in one night she gained more than 250,000 new subscribers. Now just hearing this he processed this information, and to put this in perspective, only a handful of people can achieve this in the world. He stands there in complete shock, and she began to explain to him how their broadcast actually went viral. For him it was the end of her career, but it turned out the audience ended up making her even more viral. With a shaking voice he asked her if they was going to kick him out of the home or something, and she lets him know that they won't be doing anything like that. He goes to his knees and began to thank heaven, and just when he thought that getting 1 million subscribers in a month was cool, getting a quarter of that in one night is even more epic. The thing that they just pulled out even helped Isuzu get more recognition in her agency and sponsors. He looks up and with a confident tone he lets his sister know that she is very good and amazing. She on the other hand lets him know that he is the better one of them too. She forces him to check his messages, and more importantly there was something special going on. Her live stream was blowing up like never before. Every single person was talking about how she broke her character, and was dating someone or even dating a sugar daddy. Someone were pointing out to Suta, and there was another hashtag going viral of #winebro. He questions what this is, and she clenches her hands and lets him know that this hashtag is for him. He screams and asks what this is for, and it turns out that her agency explained a few things regarding how they can handle this in a more efficient way. In this time, like when there's a trend in circumstances like this, there are a few options, but her manager ends up telling her to help her brother create his own channel. Hearing this his introvert side awakens, and he screams out just how would he do that. She begins to explain how there are a lot of people talking about how her brother is cool, and most of the comments were very interested in him overall. She makes a troubled expression, and he knew that she was secretly struggling a lot with the backlash and new questions ranging from every side and angle. He leans over to her and asks her what the comments really are about. The comments were actually positive. People were nice and understanding and started to share how they have really learned to see the real face of Wine, the character Isuzu plays. Many were very understandable and offered their full support through this. And just reading this he was filled with emotions and knew that maybe making a channel is not that bad after all. It turns out that this stream has made her into a much better person, and as ideas sneak in his mind, he knew that he could capitalize on this. He smiles and lets his sister know that he would definitely try this streaming thing. Suda has just took his first step forward after experiencing the worst fallout, and now there was nothing holding him back now. Hearing this she jolts, and she begins to call her manager. Now since most of his new followers were hers, she glances at him, and shared how she would be the first person to actually be there for his debut. When she started to stream, there were not a lot of viewers, and for most of the time, only Suda was watching her streams. But now in his case, he already has thousands of people ready to watch his unscripted stream. After some time, he smiles and lets another girl know that he is now a VTuber. Yutako makes a troubled face and lets him know that he is surely stupid. She points out how he made a big mistake for revealing his ex's full name in public and now has officially taken a turn into becoming a streamer. She cries out about how she is worried for her sister's real identity. He lets her know that if she is here just to mock and tease him, then rude customers should leave. And we fairly get an introduction to the childhood friend of Suda, Yutako. Growing up they knew each other quite well, but after some time, they just started to attend almost everything together. Now she was very good in sports, so he naturally kind of became a little distant from her. Their work life changed, and since he was busy with his father's shop, these two barely met each other like they used to do. He shares to her how he is not getting paid for the work that he did, and he asks her how did she know about the live stream and the voice leak. Since Isuzu's character is a total mystery, not even Yutako knew about it, and after hearing Suda's voice she recognized him and knew that he was the brother of the popular character Wine. She began to answer him that she remembers his voice so well that she knew that he was behind the camera, and with a questioning tone he asks just how did she even remembered his voice. Not only this was strange for him, but it was too surprising to see someone so good at recognizing someone's voice. She ends up taking a small pause, and with blushes she shares that she just knows it since he is her childhood friend. Well, although such things were okay to talk about for now, there were still some very important topics that they needed to talk about. She lets him know that he needs to take a break from the school for his own good, and she shares that if he dares to enter the school he would just get surrounded by the local male fans of wine and things would turn bad. They would try their best to get his sister's ID or address and then try to get closer to her. She explains to him that since his father only knows about his daughter's enrollment in the streaming world, it wouldn't be easy for his father to process this. He agrees and knows for a fact that his father wouldn't really take this easily. The main thing right now is how is he going to manage both his streaming world and school. Although school is still important to him, the things that took place yesterday and the day before yesterday were enough to push him into a solid conclusion of putting the school into a postponed state. Which makes sense since his sister's followers would transfer to him, and he would seriously create a career out of this. With a firm voice he lets her know that he already knows what he would be doing. Hearing this she just completely goes silent, and it seemed like she had a few things that she wanted to say, but when she was to say something, in the next second the door brushes open and a man walks in with a threatening aura. On the other hand, a girl was practicing piano, and she ends up getting a call. It seemed like this call required her to be somewhere, and as she grunted, another girl smiled to herself and muttered that finally there is another newcomer in the game. Back to Suda, he gets closer to the man and that man ends up leaning over near him. He glares through Suda's soul and asks him if he is Suda. This was the first time he really encountered men in black suits who were only interested in him, and he was wondering if they are the debt collectors for his father or something. Suda getting sold to overseas as a slave was definitely an option, and that man lets him know that he is here to pick him up. He pondered to himself if this is really his last day on Earth, and that man began to search his pockets, and slowly he brings out a business card. And he shares that he is from 812 Production Company. Suda began to mispronounce the word and immediately his childhood friend knew what a great production company that he was from. Not only it was the biggest company ever which managed big VTubers but also it was the most richest. She explains to him about how wine is also registered with them and asks him why he doesn't know anything about this. Realizing this, he finally gets the idea and he looks at that man and asks why would they be looking for him. That man explains him about the things that he would now need to do to register as a VTuber just like wine as well. Now since Isuzu never really told him anything about this, that man lowers his head and with a gentle voice he lets him know that he is sorry for all the inconvenience. At first Suda was sure that this man was scary but he just ends up finding that sometimes you should really not judge a person by their looks. He had such a kind and gentle voice that he was surprised. That man asks Suda one more time if he is free and Suda lets him know that he would check their office out after he is free with his part-time job. And that man lets him know that he would wait for him outside until he is done with the job. The excitement and happiness that his childhood friend had were beyond anything and she began to share how many people would die just to get a chance to be appointed in this company. He shares that he was only recommended by a VTuber, and she ends up sharing how they are brave enough to recruit their first male VTuber. Hearing this he froze for a second and asks about the things she just said and she shares that 812 only recruited girls and he would be the first male to ever work with them. He jolts and was a bit uncomfortable and realizing this, Yutako herself, became a little too quiet and she lets him know that she wishes him the best. There was some hint of regret in her voice, but she failed to talk on that. After his shift, he goes over and sees the massive building that stretched to hundreds of floors and this was the new stage of his life. Although everything was happening fast, there was really no backing down now. The man leads him inside but unexpectedly he ends up getting stopped by a girl who dashes towards them, while panting for air. This was another troublesome person that he would get too involved with. He mocks her for being outside of her school and while making a troubled face, they both just stand there and somehow started to exchange cold talks with each other. When he mocked her for really being not in the right floor and building, their conversation takes a sour turn when she points out to him and tells him that she knows that he is the brother of wine. As the new and exciting world of streaming opens doors to more possibility, Suda is about to ditch all his sour and painful memories and past behind and is ready to take the first big step in his life.